This is our Prentice 2384. They call it a Knuckleboom loader trailer mount, made to go on a trailer. And we got the Big John self-propelled 300. That means this slasher drives itself. It's got a 32-foot boom on it. Okay. Both drive axles. It's got the 6.7 Cummins in it. That's what they put in these. And then we got the Hanfab Saw back here. Now, this has been working pretty well for us as of lately. It's been working good. I mean, the log's looking good. This, explain a little bit, slides back 2 feet, 8 foot. We cut a lot of 8-footers here. We're not doing a lot of grade. We're not doing veneer as far as logs go. So we do a lot of 8, 10-footers, and then we cut our firewood down there. If you butt it all the way to the back of that, you're running 16 foot. So when you're spun around, you can actually set firewood up on top and cut almost 20-footers. We've ran this setup. This is all that's run around our area, mainly because that's the logs this area uses a lot. It does have a 60-inch saw on it back here, and the teeth are all replaceable. So you pop the teeth out. That one's a little busted up there. All the rest of them look real good. And you pop that rivet out and pop it out. And they re-tip these. Put a new carbide tip. Simon's does. Then you buy them back. Have had these crack multiple times in here, and then the whole blade's junk. We got some blades at the shop that are junk that have cracks. Never had any fly off. I've had them fly down in and get pinched and bound all up. I've heard of them flying off and taking off through the woods. It flattens that tire over there, and then it's... That's why you don't do a lot of sawing. I don't do any sawing when there's a skidder coming through here. It wouldn't be good. So, that's a little bit of the saw here. Pretty simple. And you can always pick it up and move it wherever you want. It's got a little hitch here. And you can pick the stiff legs up, each individually controlled. Pick them up and you can drive anywhere. The front ones steer up there. We can get up here and look around. These steps are still on it. They've been busted off a couple times. That happens. Here's your tranny down here. It's got your hydraulic pump there, and you can move this around to whatever gear you want. It's got a high and low speed in that thing. This thing really cruises when you get in high. Don't have any brakes though, so you got to be careful. There's actually brakes set up on it for the semi trucks, but they don't have any brakes set up in there. Here's your, that's your hydraulic pump sucker there. It's missing the bolt out of here, I guess. I see. It's supposed to have a bolt in there so you don't suck up a bunch of garbage. Fuel tanks down there in this thing. There's the motor compartment right there. Pretty simple, nothing special about that. These slashers are pretty simple. We got an old Barco at the shop, and it's just real simple design machines. They last a long time, and they do a really good job. Air filter, that's your hydraulic tank right there. Maybe we'll talk about that in a minute. I had to take that off one time. It wasn't any fun. Few wrenches that you always have kicking around in here. A few fittings that you might ruin. Here's your heater air conditioner box behind you. And it's a pretty simple unit. Of course, it don't work until that's clicked down. It's got your 6 buttons on each joystick, and then they all go forward, back, side to side. Here's your stiff legs here to go up and down, and this goes from your front stiff legs to your back stiff legs with that button. Horn, throttle up, throttle down, hydraulic pump kick in, air conditioning heat, your blower fan high, low, and off, your fan right there, windshield wipers, lights. This is to check your codes. This is to kick in the saw. Pretty simple. The one thing that is a bummer in this is the temperature gauge doesn't work. Everything else works fine, but it seems to be whenever you run it, temperature is always 220 degrees, 240 degrees, which you know would be blowing the motor up. And we were concerned about it after we first got it and threw a temperature gauge, checked the motor temperature coming right out of the motor, and it was running normal. You could almost touch the motor and it said it was running 220 degrees, which wasn't right. So that's kind of a bummer to deal with that. It'd be nice to get that fixed, but we've just lived with it. And we blow the radiator out every spring, and throughout the summer it'll get dirty. Blow that out. A little CD player and your CB, cell phone charger. That's about it. These all have sunroofs in them to look up higher. I haven't seen hardly a one that actually works. They all get clogged up like that, nasty. And it's not just this machine. I've seen other machines on YouTube and such that you just never see out of them things. It's a great design if you could see out of them. But here's your fuses are all behind here. On this machine, I don't know how many hours this thing has on it. Right there. Duh. I'm so used to turning the key on to get the hours off the chipper. It's got 7,200 hours on it, on this thing. So been a good slasher. We did have the was it the flex plate go out of it here a year and a half ago, probably. That was a job. It's the piece coming out of the motor that comes into your gearbox there and turns both of these hydraulic pumps, and that's your whole hydraulic tank. So we had to take the whole hydraulic tank off, tear all these pumps out to get to the gearbox. Now, didn't really know if that's what it was when we tore into it. I was 99% sure, but I wasn't 100% positive. It was just running one day and just boom, and stopped, and nothing worked. And I said, it's got to be in there. So we tore off all that. It took us a day to tear it off with our fingers crossed that it was in there, and sure enough it was. And we had a little problem in that gearbox. That was at like 6,000 hours, I think. 5,500, 6,000. Got all that put back together and ran fine ever since. So it's just how it goes. We had to replace a couple solenoids in here because a stick got up into here and busted off a couple of them solenoids way back there. It's amazing how sticks find their way up there, but go through some hoses in here because it's kind of, when you kick this, these are for your saw right here. When you kick them babies, when you kick that saw on, these hoses lift right up off the frame. It's moving a lot of fluid to get that saw to turn. You got to have that baby singing. So it's worked pretty good for us. We had to do a little work in here about a year ago and replace some hoses up in there. We had a hose blowout up in there, and actually we cut a hole inside of the frame to get in there because it's difficult to get in there. So, but That's the bucket we run on these. It's just, we like that style, I guess. Works really good for us. And she's got some junk coming out of her. A little bit of a leak, but what do you do, right? But that's the Rotobeck bucket we got on her. And that's what we run. The other one's got almost, it's an older design of the same thing, so I believe it's a 3/4 cord bucket. It's full. But that's our Prentice. Yeah, I was just going to fire that thing up, but we can move it out of the way. I'm sure it'll fire up. Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's the Prentice slasher. Got your little air conditioning. We had to replace a couple hoses on here because somebody got some firewood up into here, and you can knock those lines off if you're not careful. And that ain't no fun. So you gotta be a little careful. But this thing's been pretty good for us. So that's our Prentice slasher, 2384. We've been really happy with it so far. It has been a good slasher, and it does just a beautiful job on them logs. I mean, you can whack and stack all day long, and does just a nice job. Don't burn a lot of fuel. Nothing like them flails. Obviously, it's doing a whole lot less, but man, this thing you can slash a lot of logs. On that last job, Mike was cutting just a crazy gob of logs coming off that cradle. You get the right wood, and you get a good operator, and you get somebody skinning it to you, you can put a lot of this stuff up with one of those. So there's the Prentice walk around.